Hello YouTube and welcome to a new video. Welcome to this second installment of pre-analysis of the World Chess Championship contenders Magnus Carlsen and Fabiano Caruana. This is actually their second game that they ever played against each other in a classical game. So it is from the Biel Chess Festival in 2011, and prior to this game the last time they played was in the World Blitz Championship back in 2010, where Carlsen won both of their games that they had against each other. And I've got my coffee ready, so I'm ready to roll. Alright, so it opened up as a e4, e5 opening, but as the previous game was a Roy Lopez or Spanish game, this game actually went on with knight f3, knight c6 and d4, the Scotch game, or the whiskey opening as I like to call it. Or after these moves, you can call it the classical Scotch game actually, after knight captures c6. Another possibility would be to bring a bishop out to e3 and after queen to f6, c3, just keeping a tight grip onto the d4 knight and square. And just rapid development with either bishop e2 or bishop c4 castling and bringing out your pieces. But in this game, the classical Scotch, black has a threat of bringing his bishop onto the a6 square, as we will see. I'm not going to go into many details about this Scotch opening. It is a really well-known opening, especially since it's so easy to play, opening up for both white's bishops, and really is a nice opening to play, especially for beginners, I would say, because rapid development is so nice. But Carlsen continued with knight captures c6, the classical variation of the whiskey opening. Yeah, don't laugh at your own jokes, man. That's just sad. Anyways, b captures c6, and as I mentioned, this bishop might get to a6. That's the reason why you take back with the b pawn. Also, because you want to capture to the center. You want to try to control the center with an eventual d5 or d6 pawn push. So this c6 pawn is actually stepping up and helping that pawn on d5 if necessary. But anyways, now Magnus played bishop to d3, and this move is not forced, but it is the one that is the most played, I think, and it is recommended. But other moves such as knight to c3 is also good. So let's say after bishop d3, black plays queen h4, which happened in the game. So if white instead had played knight to c3, as we will see right now, knight to c3, then I lost my notes here. Yeah, the knight f6 is the best option, and by playing this way instead of queen to h4, you're trying to get at this pawn and also the d5 square, trying to contend against the light squares here in the center. But by playing the bishop to d3, you're expecting queen to h4, which is the obvious reply. Queen h4 here. And now, after a move such as queen a2, which was played in the game, you don't have to worry about this bishop on f1 anymore. This bishop is already out into the game. So another move could be just a castle here. I think that is the one recommended. But queen e2 is also a good move. So queen e2. And now black played knight to e7. And I don't really understand the meaning of that move. I think that knight to f6 would have been preferred. I think I can't really say that I've seen many players play knight to e7. Like, you want to attack the d5 square, but I'd rather do that from f6, right? But I think somewhat his idea Caruana, that is to safeguard this pawn on c6 once he pushes this pawn either 1 or 2 squares in front. So that's the only thing I can come up with that knight e7 actually accomplishes. But as I mentioned, I think knight to f6 would have been preferred because it is more centralizing and it is kind of attacking the pawn and getting at the d5 square. But alright, knight to c3, castles, and bishop to e3, and bishop to b6. So another idea here would be to simply capture this bishop. And opting for rapid piece activity with rook to e8 and d6, or even just d6 immediately and then rook to e8. Maybe even d5. But Caruana plays bishop back to b6, hoping that if Magnus Carlsen takes and trades bishops here, black can actually take back with his c-pawn and have a great pawn structure on the queen side. Castles and d5. Now this move looks kind of scary for white, but in fact I think it is weakening a bit black's pawn structure because of these two doubled pawns. I think the move d6 would have been preferred, or even rook to e8. I don't think that d5 actually works as Caruana intends to. But let's say e captures d5, which happened, and knight captures d5. This is what was played in the game, but what if c captures d5 here? So if c captures d5, then bishop captures b6, and I think a captures, and then let's see, yeah, and then queen to e5, with the idea of capturing this pawn as well as targeting this pawn. So the only move would be c6, and after c6, white can actually just try to trade queens and further stop black's he can create another weakness for black by capturing this, and now this would be a terrible position for black. Not unplayable, but those f pawns are really bad because they are doubled and there are no other pawns right besides them that can actually protect the other pawns. So after knight captures d5, Magnus played bishop to d2, intending not to trade the knight for the bishop here, and also trying to just keep things nice and tight, so if knight captures c3, then bishop can capture back onto the c3 square, lining up towards the black king, and also having a nice attack. If white didn't do that, then a move such as knight captures c3 would kind of be bad for white too, because then he would have doubled c-pawns. Bishop to d4, trying to gang up on that so that he actually gets doubled pawns. So what does Magnus Carlsen do? Well, he doesn't care. Rook a to e1. And now Fabiano Caruana says to himself that, well, is it actually good for me to give him doubled pawns? Because after such a move as knight captures c3, pawn captures c3, the bishop has to move again, and white's bishops are really strong, and after a move such as c4 and bishop to c3, those two bishops on c3 and d3 will become really active and really powerful against the black king. And that, I don't think that's what Caruana wants in this particular position. And that's why I think he played knight to b4, trying to get at this bishop instead. But here Carlsen just simply tries to trade queens and says to Caruana that, well, if you want my bishop, I'm going to take your queen, so please be aware of that. Let's hope Caruana falls for it. Obviously he did not. He took the queen, and after bishop captures e4, Magnus still has the bishop pair, and everything looks fine. But after bishop a6, this rook seems kind of weirdly placed. But Magnus has an idea here. So knight to e2, threatening not only c3, but also guarding against bishop captures f1. So if black were to play something like rook here, let's say, then Magnus could take here, giving away this rook, but after king captures, he would have 2 pieces for the rook, and that would be kind of good for Magnus, since this is a huge weakness in black's position. But that didn't happen. Instead, after bishop c5, here, bishop c5, stepping away from that fork, Magnus played knight to d5. What am I saying? a3 and then knight to d5. b4, bishop to d6, and knight to d4. Trying to get at one of those weaknesses, that weak pawn on c6. But I really had a hard time here figuring out why this particular move was so strong. Why could Magnus Carlsen simply give away his rook for a bishop here? I came to the conclusion that white has more piece activity, and the 2 pawns on the c file for black is really hard to defend against, or hard to defend for black. And after those 2 c pawns are gone, white is going to have a really great queenside play, because this c pawn might become a huge pawn here on c6 after these pawn pushes. So that's really hard to see for us mere mortals, but it is actually really one of the best moves in the position. So king captures f1, knight to b6, knight captures c6, rook f to e1, and I was also wondering why he didn't play this rook move in, but then this a7 pawn will fall, and again, these pawns on the queen side will be so terrifying for black. So I'm thinking that's why he didn't allow Magnus to take on a7. So rook f to e8 and a4. And now king f8, a5, and knight to c4. So we're going to come back to this knight move after we're done with the game analysis, just to show you another line of play. But for now, just think about where you would have put this knight as black, because this move is actually quite terrible. And it's really hard to see why that is at the moment, but it's just amazing how this comes to be a really bad move. Alright, so bishop to c1, trying to say to the knight that you can't go anywhere. This knight can't go anywhere at the moment. That's pretty funny, right? Now a6, f4, stopping the knight from even getting to e5. So if that would have happened, like if knight here right now, Magnus could have just taken that knight because of bishop captures a8 afterwards, and Magnus would just be a pawn up there. So Caruana didn't like that, so he played a6 first, and now f4. This knight is kind of trapped. It looks very hard for that knight to go anywhere, doesn't it? So rook e6, trying to get doubled up on the e file here, but Magnus just simply plays bishop to d5. And here black has a lot of different options, but none of them is actually good. For instance, rook captures e1 and king captures e1, rook to e8, check, king f2, And where does this knight go? Where does this knight go? And another line would be something like rook a to e8 immediately, but now white can actually just trade. And after f captures e6, which could have happened, he actually weakens up his pawn structure even more, so that white could just take the knight and be 2 pieces up for the rook. And this would be losing for black. Another move would be after rook captures e6, then rook captures e6 instead. But then simply bishop captures c4, and there's nothing black can do to prevent these pawns from becoming really, really strong. This a5 pawn is really, really dangerous. So it looks really, really hard for black to do anything. Black didn't do any of those things though. He played rook to f6, Caruana. And here Magnus played rook to e4, targeting that knight. And this was the end of the game. Caruana resigned here due to the fact that his knight is lost. There's nothing that black can do to really recover from losing this knight. There's gonna be, like, Magnus is gonna have 2 pieces for the rook, and this pawn and eventually the c7 pawn will fall. It's really interesting to see how that came to happen because of this knight to c4 move. But let's go back. I want to go back and look at other possibilities for that black knight. So after these moves, we have a4 and now a5. Now, Caruana, as you saw, played knight to c4. And I'm going to show you a computer line here. This is not my line whatsoever. I'm having a really hard time. Like, I was thinking about both these 2 moves, and the computer suggests that this move is losing, and this move is actually working quite alright for black. So let's have a look at that. Knight to d7 instead. Then the computer suggests g3, a6, c4. And this would actually be better for black. This shows that even great players like Caruana can make huge mistakes. The game may have continued with a furthering of this line, although it is essentially a computer line, so they might have not been playing this out if Caruana had played knight to d7, obviously. But the play may have continued with knight to b8, trying to get rid of that knight. It's ridiculously strong on c6. So Magnus, I don't think he would have traded there actually. Just simply played his knight back to d4, as suggested by the computer. Rook a7, because of this bishop attacking the rook. And now b5, now c5, and knight to f3. Rook to d7, rook to e3, now h6 and b6. This pawn is so powerful, and it was probably nothing that black could do to actually not get white a passed pawn on the queen side here. And that really shows how strong Magnus Carlsen can be when he is trying to be funny with sacrificing the exchange. Like, who or how many of you would have actually sacrificed the exchange on f1 there? In a real game, in a classical game, I don't think I would ever come to the conclusion of playing that move. But hey, that's why they are the best. So with an advantage in this position, due to the nasty pass d pawn, I think black would still be lost, but the computer suggests that this is much better for black than the game continuation with knight to c4. So yeah, that was the second installment of my game analysis for before the World Championship match. Fabiano Caruana, the challenger, versus the World Chess Champion Magnus Carlsen. And since I am a Norwegian, obviously I would have to root for Magnus Carlsen in this match. But I'm really looking forward to this because this is going to be so hard for both players. They are so equal in strength at this point that it's almost like impossible not to get excited about this. And they are number 1 and number 2 in the world on the rating list right now. And I think that the last time number 1 and number 2 in the world was playing against each other was in 1990, the Garry Kasparov versus Anatoly Karpov match. So this is going to be so much fun. So tomorrow I'm going to post another video of a game that they played against each other. So look forward to that, and I hope this game analysis shows how strong Magnus Carlsen can be and how easy it is to get lost positions even when you are material up, like Fabiano Caruana was in this game. Thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe, please follow me on Twitch, and join my Discord channel. It's Norwegian, the House of Giants, the Norwegian Chess Giant channel. Alright, cheers everyone, bye.